Sarah, and this is Budgetsew, where we create stylish, fashionable looks as inexpensively as possible. Today, we're doing a sew-along to the Newsboy Cap from Saturday Night Hat by Eugenia Kim. I've always loved hats. If I'm leaving the house, I always have on a hat. Hats not only keep my face protected from the sun in the summer and my ears warm in the winter, but I feel that they really project a complete stylish look. I decided to grab my Saturday Night Hat book and whip up a new hat. Saturday Night Hat is quick and easy hat making for the downtown girl. In this book, Eugenia Kim teaches you to make 30 of her own designs with patterns and instructions so easy you can start the project Saturday afternoon and wear it out Saturday night. I love every single hat that's in this book. I bought it off Amazon.ca for $18.29. It was a secondhand copy, but in fantastic condition. I'll post the link to this book on Amazon.ca in the description box of this video. Who is Eugenia Kim, you may ask? Eugenia Kim was out shopping one day in Soho wearing a red feathered cloche she made in her millinery class at the Parsons School of Design when several boutique owners immediately took notice. Within a week, she had her first collection, and now she sells her women's and men's hats and custom couture pieces in department stores worldwide. Eugenia Kim got her inspiration from the Newsboy from a Madonna music video. She said, "The defining moment for me and the Newsboy was the first time I saw the Madonna video for Borderline. After watching it, I badly wanted a puffy black cap with a big bow in the front, exactly like the one she wore, and to spray paint graffiti with rubber bracelet-laden arms. Years later, I finally designed my own Newsboy, and ironically enough, the Material Girl got one for herself. I'm ready to make some headlines with my own Newsboy, so let's get started."
My first step was to draw the pattern. I flipped to page 140 in the book to trace the Newsboy Cap crown piece. The instructions said, enlarge and photocopy it and cut out the half triangular shape. Trace it onto a separate sheet of paper that is folded in half. Then flip the pattern along the center fold line and trace the other side. With scissors, cut out the completed triangular pattern piece. I didn't follow the instructions exactly with this step. Instead, I traced the pattern piece straight from the book using a scrap of pattern paper from a thrifted Berta style pattern that I bought from Value Village. I had just finished cutting out this pattern earlier in the day and thought that this remnant of tissue paper might come in handy someday. The instructions said that this pattern is for a 23-inch or 58 centimeter size medium, and the template said to use at 100%, but I didn't enlarge this pattern piece. I usually choose a size large hat when sewing, but since this was going to be made from a knit, I thought that this size would be just fine. After I traced the pattern, I used a blue Sharpie to go over my pencil marks so that they were permanent. Then I folded the pattern along the center fold line and cut it out. This gave me the two halves of the pattern piece. After I cut it out, I labeled the pattern. I wrote, "The Newsboy from Saturday Night Hat." I also wrote the cutting instructions on the pattern piece. Cut 4 from fabric and cut 4 from lining. Then I skipped ahead to step 9 from the book. It said, see page 141 for the bill pattern. Photocopy it and with your scissors, cut it out to use as your pattern piece. This template is used for both the Newsboy and Engineer caps in this book. This template piece must be enlarged by 20%, so if you photocopy it, remember to choose the enlarge feature. Since I was excited to get started on this hat, I decided to trace the pattern piece, and I enlarged it the best that I could on my own. This may seem a strange way to enlarge the hat, but I measured the length and width of the bill and added 20%. Then I stretched the shape as best as I could. Looking back, I had the right idea of enlarging the pattern piece, but maybe not the correct method. The bill piece turned out lovely despite all my second guessing myself. I used another piece of the Berta style pattern to trace the bill piece. This Berta style remnant pattern paper was a bit thicker than the McCall's or Simplicity pattern paper, so I was thrilled to use it again for this pattern. I had a feeling that I would be making up this hat again and again. You can see that I really sweated this step. I wasn't sure if I was enlarging the bill correctly, so I ended up freehanding it. I traced all my pencil lines with my blue Sharpie, and then I labeled the pattern piece. I love Newsboy caps. The very first one I bought myself was made from a turquoise velvet, and I remember wearing it to the Santa Claus parade in London, Ontario. I was lucky it wasn't snowing that evening because it wasn't meant for winter, but I loved the look and feel of the velvet. I usually paired it with my brown tweed jacket that I bought for $20 from the Salvation Army charity store. The Newsboy was from the Salvation Army too. On the pattern piece, I wrote "cut 2 of fabric," and then I cut it out. Once my pattern pieces were drawn, I cut them out of fabric. Another great Newsboy cap of mine was knitted from an olive green wool. I wore it to the local London Knights hockey games to cheer on my team. This hat was a lot warmer than my turquoise velvet hat, so it kept me nice and toasty while watching the game in the John Labatt Center. I'm pretty sure that I bought this cap secondhand from the Salvation Army and paired it with a matching olive green velvet jacket that I bought from either the Salvation Army or Value Village. Or it might have come from the Goodwill store in St. Thomas. It was secondhand too, but it looked brand new. When the snow started to fall, I switched out the turquoise Newsboy for the green one with my tweed jacket. These photos are taken at the Pinery Provincial Park on Boxing Day. Every year, my family and I drive to the Pinery and roast wieners and marshmallows over a grill. We bring a thermos full of hot water for tea and either some cake or pie that my mom had made for Christmas. Since I freehanded the bill, I folded the pattern piece in half and evened up the edges with my paper scissors. I had another Newsboy hat that I just adored. This one was from 9 West, and I bought it on sale at the Hudson's Bay Company. It was made of a blue canvas and projected a nautical look when I wore it in the summer. It didn't protect my face from the sun, not really, but I loved wearing it. I like to match it with my blue Vero jacket with gold anchor buttons. That jacket was so comfortable because it was made from a sweatshirt fabric. I think it was 50-50 cotton polyester. I love that the bill of the Newsboy cap may be used with the Engineer cap. Then I laid the bill pattern piece onto a piece of lightweight cardboard to be traced. I chose a piece of cardboard that wasn't too stiff and had some flexibility to it. The instructions said, lay the bill template on the buckram or cardboard. With a fabric pencil, trace the shape onto the cardboard. Then trace a line 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeters inside the trace line. Cut out one piece along the inside trace line. This ensures that the cardboard piece will fit snugly into the two fabric bill pieces when they're sewn together. I used a regular pencil to trace the bill, and then I used my craft scissors to cut the cardboard along the inside trace line. I double-checked that my cardboard piece was half an inch smaller than my fabric pieces. Then I jumped to step 11 and pinned the two fabric bill pieces together along the longest curved edge with the right sides facing. This will be sewn with a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter seam allowance. Then I took my 4 fabric crown pieces and laid them out right sides up. I wanted to make sure that I cut out each one correctly following the pattern of the houndstooth. Once I determined that they looked good, I laid one piece on top of the other, right sides together, and pinned along one edge, and did the same with the other 2 pieces. Step 3 of the instructions said, pin 2 pieces of self fabric together, right side to right side. Once I had pinned the quarters of the hats into halves, I pinned the halves together. I followed the exact steps for the lining that I did with the crown pieces. Saturday Night Hat recommended a heavy cotton canvas, denim, or wool for the best results for the newsboy. I used a medium weight knitted houndstooth that I bought from Value Village. There was approximately 1.25 meters and I paid $5.99 for the full piece. Even though the pattern did not recommend a knit fabric, I chose the houndstooth because it was the same pattern that Eugenia chose, just a different color. My fabric was black and beige, but Eugenia's was black and white. There was one more pattern piece required for this pattern. This rectangular strip was for the headband and it measured 2.5 inches by 24 inches, or 6.4 centimeters by 64 centimeters. I cut my strip a little bit longer than the 24 inches because I have a bigger head. You'll see that I cut out one of fabric and another one out of lining, but that was a mistake. Only one piece of fabric is needed for the headband. No lining piece required. I folded the headband piece in half and pinned it along the short edge. At the sewing machine, I sewed the bill pieces together. I used black Coats & Clark, all-purpose dual-duty thread that I bought from Value Village thrift store. Usually I don't use second-hand thread when sewing my garments, but this thread was in a big bag of brand new Coats & Clark thread for $1.99. I think that there are about 20 spools of black and white thread in the bag, so it was quite a steal. I checked the thread before buying it, and it was very strong, and it's actually newer than some of the thread in my sewing box. Then I sewed the crown pieces together. For the lining, the instructions recommended 1/2 yard or 0.5 meters of lining fabric in any color and any fabric content. I chose a golden brown lining fabric that I received for free from FabCycle. The link to the video where I received this fabric is at the top of the screen. FabCycle collects fabric scraps, production offcuts, swatches, and other wonderful textures and colors of fabrics from Vancouver apparel manufacturers. The scraps are free, but you have to pay shipping, or pick up the scraps from their Vancouver-based reuse center. The scraps come in various sizes. Some are as small as 2 centimeters and some are much larger and could come in uneven cuts. They don't guarantee which scrap sizes you'll receive, but for every scrap box they make, they add a good mix of sizes and textures, so you have a lovely selection of fabrics. These scraps are great for makers that can work with small sizes of fabrics or use as materials for stuffing. I don't mind piecing together patterns and fabrics, so these were great for me. Since I ordered $100 worth of fabric on my order from FabCycle, I requested 1 medium box of scraps, which was about 3 kilograms. Then I sewed the headband edges together. This step was not in the instructions, but I had lengthened my headband strip before cutting it out. Next, I sewed the lining crown pieces together. I didn't switch thread colors because I didn't have an exact match, and I thought that the black thread looked good with the lining fabric, even though I wouldn't see the stitching, because it would be on the inside of the hat. The instructions recommended top stitching the crown pieces, but I didn't do that because the newsboy in the photos did not have top stitching. To bring out the best shape of the bill's curved seam, I snipped 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter long slits into the outside curved seam allowance, spaced about 1/4 of an inch or 0.6 centimeters apart. Next, I turned the bill right side out and inserted the cardboard bill piece. I had to wiggle the cardboard piece around in the fabric to ensure that the seam allowance laid flat. Once that was done, I pinned the bill opening closed. Since I had 1.25 meters of fabric, I decided to make a matching bag. I chose Simplicity 9553, View 2. Simplicity 9553 was published in 1971 and is a pattern for spats and 2 bags. View 1 is a lined shoulder bag with a zipper closing and is trimmed with appliques and metallic trims. View 2 is a lined shoulder bag with a flap. View 3 is the spats with a zipper and elastic foot strap and has special stitch lines to make the spats larger or smaller. I bought this pattern about 10 years ago from Value Village stores for 99 cents. Then I folded the headband in half lengthwise and pinned it in place. You may recognize the bag pattern from my Simplicity 9553 bag sew-along video, where I made the bag from a luxurious black velvet with gold embroidery. The link to the video with that sew-along is at the top of the screen. The suggested fabrics for View 2's bag were velveteen, suede cloth, corduroy, denim, canvas, duck, homespun, hop sacking, linen, and leather-like fabrics. The houndstooth was a knit, but I lined it with a woven black polyester remnant. This lining fabric is the same fabric that I used to sew the perfect knife pleats on my Calvin Klein skirt. The link to the video with that how-to video is at the top of the screen. Then I pinned each of the 4 darts closed, and then I pinned each of the 4 lining darts closed. At the sewing machine, I sewed the bill closed at the inside curve with a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter seam allowance, securing the cardboard piece as tightly as possible inside the fabric shell. there was a handy tip in the instructions that said, securing the cardboard piece as tightly as possible inside the fabric will give more structure to the bill. Also, use the cardboard as a guideline when pinning the bill to the cap. Then I sewed each of the 4 darts. The instructions said, sew each dart closed with an edge stitch. When I laid out the pattern pieces for the Newsboy hat and Simplicity bag, I realized that there was just enough fabric left over to make a top. I chose McCall's 7869 from 2018. McCall's 7869 is a pullover top with length, sleeve, and fabric variations. View A and B have flounces, View C has a contrast yoke, and View D has purchased piping. Then I sewed each of the lining darts closed with an edge stitch. You may recognize the top pattern from my McCall's 7869 sew-along video, where I made up a variation of views A and C. The link to the video with that sew-along is at the top of the screen. This time, I chose to make view C. The body of the top was made from the houndstooth, and the contrast V, lower band and sleeves were made from a black jersey knit polyester, 144 centimeters wide and 3.85 meters long, that I bought from FabCycle. The fabric was called Black Ice and was originally $30.80, but with my 25% off discount, I paid $23.10 for the bundle, which broke down to $6 a meter. Next, I turned the fabric crown right side out and placed the lining wrong side in so that the seam allowances were hidden inside the hat, and I pinned the seam allowances together. I matched up the seam lines of each quarter and each dart and placed a pin. If the seams are looking bulky and misshapen, clip the curves for a cleaner cut line. Snip 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter long slits along the seam allowances at 1/4 of an inch or 0.6 intervals. With the pressing iron, press open the seams. Then I pinned the pressed headband piece into place. The instructions said, set and pin the folded headband over the bottom edge of the crown shell, lining up all raw edges. Sew all 3 layers together with 1/4 of an inch or 0.6 centimeter seam allowance. I really enjoyed reading Saturday Night Hat by Eugenia Kim. I love all the hat designs, trims, the step-by-step instructions, and the millinery lingo in the book. There's even a handy glossary at the back of the book to clarify everything. This next step was a lot of fun. I got to use my self-cover buttons for the button at the top of this cap. I bought them a few years ago in a goodie bag for $2.99 from Value Village that included a tape measure keychain in the shape of a sheep, 3 knitting stitch holders, and different sizes and shapes of brand new buttons. The link to the video with that thrift haul is at the top of the screen. I had never used self-cover buttons before, but I was really excited to use them now. The buttons didn't come with any instructions, so I made it up as I went along. I cut a square piece of my houndstooth fabric, large enough to cover the front of the button, and wrap around to the back. I placed the fabric over the button and stretched it over the little hooks on the back that held the fabric in place. As I stretched the fabric around to the back, I cut off the excess so that the backer would lock into place. To secure the backer, I squeezed the front and back together all the way around until I heard a little click. Then I went back to the sewing machine to secure the headband to the crown. I recently bought some heavyweight fusible buckram from Fabricland online to make hats. This pattern recommended either buckram or cardboard for the bill. Buckram is a stiff and heavy fabric used to permanently bond to a variety of crafts, accessories, home decor, and apparel projects. I'm looking forward to using this on my next hat. Then, with a sewing needle, I sewed the self-covered button onto the top of the crown. In Saturday Night Hat, Eugenia Kim gave hat styling advice. She said, "Newsboy caps work well with all lengths of hair. Shape a few curls of your short hair towards your face with gel, or wear long hair down or in a French braid. I like newsboy caps best with a fresh face from the country. To achieve this look, give yourself wind-blown rosy cheeks with a liquid stained blush. A natural tweed cap can contrast nicely with a touch of gold shimmer on your eyes or a well-defined deep berry lip." Next, I pinned the bill to the headband. Step 15 of the instructions said, "Turn the hat upside down and flip up the headband 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters when finished. Pin the bill to the front center with the raw edge of the bill set 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeters below the headband fold edge. The stitch line on the bill should match to the headband folded edge. Set pins to the outside of the hat." This step took multiple attempts, and I felt it was the hardest part of the whole project, but it was worth it. Then I pinned the gross grain ribbon to the headband. Step 16 of the instructions said, "Overlap the gross grain ribbon to the inside, 1/8 of an inch or 0.3 centimeters below the headband folded edge. Pin and set all 3 layers together with 1/8 of an inch or 0.3 centimeter top stitch. Allow 1 inch or 2.5 centimeter overlap at the center back and cut off the excess ribbon." The instructions recommended 1.25 inch wide gross grain ribbon, but I used 1.5 inch gross grain ribbon that I bought from Amazon.ca. The ribbon was 50 yards or 45 meters long and was perfect for my hats, but also for crafts. It's 100% polyester and it's wound on a hollow reel, which is so convenient to use. I like that the instructions in Saturday Night Hat don't call for hundreds of dollars worth of millinery equipment. Many of the materials can be found in your house. The book also recommends that if you can't find one of the materials, to use something similar. At the sewing machine, I sewed the bill to the cap first. I stitched this separately from the gross grain ribbon so that it was attached securely. The bill attachment and gross grain ribbon were 2 separate steps in the book, but I decided to get all the pinning done at once so I could sew both steps at the sewing machine, back to back. Then I sewed the gross grain ribbon to the inside of the hat. This step covered all the raw edges on the inside of the hat. When I tried my hat on, it fit perfectly, but if you run into problems with your hat, there are solutions to make the hat's head size bigger. Saturday Night Hat recommended that if you want to stretch your hat up to 3/4 of an inch or 2 centimeters, do it yourself with a little patience and steam. Apply steam around the rope line several times non-stop. Once you've loosened up the fibers, hand stretch your hat by carefully pulling it outward from all angles so as not to warp its shape. Don't be too rough though. You wouldn't want to have to make it smaller if you stretched it too big. If you've stretched your hat too big, then there are a couple of ways to make your hat's head size smaller. You can wet the gross grain ribbon and it will dry tighter overnight. For faster results and a smaller head size, stick the hat near a radiator. Or you can pinch and hand tack the gross grain ribbon at both the left center and right center to tighten the ribbon. If you don't like the look of that, then you can sew in another gross grain ribbon atop the existing one for a sleek, clean look. Here is the finished hat.
To complete the look, the top that I'm wearing is McCall's 7869, and the bag is Simplicity 9553. The Mia jeans by Denver Hayes and the necklace are from Value Village thrift stores. The earrings were a gift from a friend. I hope you enjoyed my sew along to the Newsboy Cap from Saturday Night Hat. Please like and share this video with your friends and family. I love sharing my new, vintage, and out-of-print sewing patterns, and my tips, tricks, quick fixes, and even my mistakes when sewing along with you. I also love sharing my wonderful fabric finds that I thrifted from charity shops, as well as brand new fabric online and in-store. If you'd like to see more from Budgetsew, please subscribe and press the bell to receive a notification when I release a new video. If you'd like to stay up to date with Budgetsew, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Budgetsew. Thanks for watching. See you next time.